Hi, I'm Carly Walminster, and I'm here today with Sonia Keating and John Lathrop, and we will be having a conversation about USEF's rules and regulations processes around horse welfare. In the reporting and resolution process, there's 4 steps, right?
Correct. The first step is the report itself. The second step is the intake phase. The third is the investigation. And then finally is the action step and outcome.
I know we see it a lot on social media. We've talked a lot about this. What is needed in a report to help it get to the next stage? What does your team need when you're looking at these submitted reports to say, okay, yes, we have enough information to move this to the next stage of the process?
So we need as much detail as possible. When a report is submitted, if the reporting party can provide as much detail, if they have any documentary evidence, any videos, any photographs, a list of witnesses, anybody that has actual knowledge of the incident that occurred, that's going to really help as our team does a thorough and fair investigation of the incident.
And what are some of your biggest challenges and your team's biggest challenges when looking at these reports?
One challenge is the reliance on social media. And I think it's important to highlight that as an organization, we cannot solely rely on content that's sourced from social media platforms like TikTok. While those are highly influential and they are widely utilized, they often lack the context, verification, and evidence that's necessary for USEF to take formal disciplinary action.
And in this process, what is the role of the reporting member? What are they supposed to do?
So that's a great question, Carly. The reporting member, they're supposed to provide as much information as they can and to be available for an interview. Now, we do everything that we can. We go to great lengths to protect reporting parties, including their identity. We do not force someone to participate in the disciplinary process that is unwilling to do so. But we do need to try to obtain as much information as we can because that will likely lead to other leads to get the information needed to corroborate or substantiate the report.
And Sonia, with this reporting structure, what do you think benefits members? What helps them with this reporting process and structure from beginning to end?
What benefits members about the reporting structure is, one, we've removed all barriers to reporting. So there's multiple ways to report misconduct. If it occurs at a competition, then report it to a TD or steward, and you can ensure that that's going to get back to the Federation because they do have a duty to report that in their post-competition reports. You could send an email to makeareport@usef.org. You could file a report online through our online reporting form, which is very user-friendly. Or you could report through our anonymous texting platform at 2USEF, and that is managed by a third-party vendor known as Real Response. And while the identity of the reporting party is not known to USEF, we do have the ability to engage with the reporting party. Now, certainly it doesn't have to remain anonymous, and the reporting party can disclose their identity. But all of these platforms have the ability to attach documents, videos, photographs, whatever evidence or materials that the person may have that would help substantiate the matter.
Are there any measures for members who report that protect them in the reporting process?
Yes, USEF does have an anti-retaliation policy that it takes very seriously, and anyone who engages in retaliatory conduct will be subject to penalties.
I feel like that's something that we see a lot is people are sometimes afraid to come forward because of the fear of retaliation. But with that process in place, people can feel confident that they can report and that we have a structure in place that also helps whistleblowers.
Yes, and we do recognize that there is this real fear of retaliation, but what is important to know is that USEF goes to great lengths to protect the identity of reporting parties. So participation in the investigative process does not mean that someone is then going to be compelled to testify at a hearing, or that the person who's engaged in the misconduct is going to know about their participation.
Got it. On average, how many reports does your team receive?
So on average, we're receiving a couple hundred reports a year. Now, we are seeing an uptick, and I think that's due in part to more awareness about how to make reports, and also the change to GR 838 on the unethical treatment of the horse.
And with those reports, obviously that's a huge amount of reporting that your guys' team does. How do you go through all of those reports? What does the process look like?
So every report goes through the same process. Upon receipt, it goes through what I'll describe as an intake process. It then goes through the investigation process, and then it ends with some type of resolution.
Okay. And what's the average timeline for these reports? What's the timeline people should expect if they are reporting?
So the timeline's going to vary. It's going to vary depending on the severity of the reported misconduct and the complexity. It's going to depend on how many witnesses, for example, are involved and how long that takes to conduct those interviews. And it also depends on whether or not there's a criminal investigation and civil litigation, which will delay the matter.
And to deal with the influx of reports that you guys have received, we have John here. It feels like there is movement in making sure that you guys are staffed with the scope that you need to be to handle the depth of reports that you guys are getting.
Well, we are continuing to increase the resources. We did bring another lawyer on the team last fall to help. John joined us as the Integrity Unit investigator, and we've added some new roles to the Regulation Department to help ensure that we have the resources that we need to process these in a complete and timely manner.
And John, joining US Equestrian in this role, what is it exactly that you do, and what do you bring to the table for Sonia's team and in that department?
So I bring a lot of experience. My background in my career, I started off in the United States Coast Guard and spent 7 years active duty on a Coast Guard cutter, and then the small boat station doing law enforcement, search and rescue. And I really love law enforcement and that angle of what we were doing in the military. So when I got out of the military, was discharged, I got hired by the Lee County Sheriff's Office, and I started on patrol with the Sheriff's Office. Did a brief time in the Marine unit because of my experience with the Coast Guard and the boats, and then I transitioned into the Detective Bureau, and I started out most of my career at my 25 years at the Sheriff's Office was in the Detective Bureau. So I started off with doing burglaries, property crimes, check cases, things like that. From there, I was asked to go into the auto theft unit. So part of the auto theft unit, people think, oh, it's just stolen cars, but we would do stolen cars, chop shops, motorcycles, organized crime, heavy equipment. Part of the cargo theft task force, work with agencies, federal, state, all over the country. From there, I was asked to go into the violent crimes unit. So from the violent crimes unit, I would investigate kidnappings, shootings, stabbings, violent felonies, serious stuff. And that's usually a stepping stone for the detectives that get that experience to go into the homicide unit. So back in 2010, I was drafted in the homicide unit, and I spent 6.5 years in the homicide working murder cases, attempted murders, death investigations daily. I did a lot of that. Then I went over to the sexual offender and sexual predator unit, investigating sex crime cases. And I ended my tenure with the Sheriff's Department. My last 5 years of the Sheriff's Department, I was in intelligence. So we did a lot of threats to politicians, threats to officials, risk protection orders, things like that we were working on.
So the scope of what you've investigated from a law enforcement perspective is pretty significant, and your experience with investigations is significant.
Yes, ma'am. I've done thousands of investigations over the years, and I have a lot of experience in a wide variety of crimes, and the process is the same whether you're investigating, for the most part, a burglary to a murder. You dig for the facts and you uncover all the details and all the facts you can, and then you put it in a very thorough, detailed investigative report. So the attorneys or the people on the next step can follow their process.
And for what you're doing for USEF, what does your daily look like in this role?
I'm assigned cases. So the cases I'm assigned, I conduct interviews with witnesses, I gather evidence, then I take that evidence and I put it all into a detailed case report. And it's the same similar case report exactly as we'd use for any other crime I'd investigate. And then once I gather all the evidence, we would do reviews with our supervisors, the regulations director and legal department, and they would determine on how we proceed with the case. And then after that, I would also be involved with helping if the case went to hearing and prepping with the attorneys and making sure we have everything we need to be a successful outcome.
Sonia, why was it important for you to bring somebody on board like John who has the scope of experience he does with law enforcement?
We wanted to bring the professionalism and the professional experience to the Federation. John's role is important in that he looks at every case referred to him from a neutral perspective. He is what I would refer to as the fact finder. He is the one that's digging for the facts through interviewing witnesses, reviewing documents, videos, photographs, and in the end, presenting all of those facts and hopefully the context of the entire situation internally for review before determination is made whether or not a rule violation occurred and how to proceed with that.
And when there is a rule violation, what is the key part of the resolution process? If you get to that point and it's been determined that a rule violation has occurred, what then happens?
It depends on how egregious the violation is. If there is a way in which we can resolve the matter informally, then we aim to do that. If we can obviate the need for a hearing and going through that process, it's more efficient to avoid that, and it's less expensive on everybody. We will typically offer a penalty and try to come to an agreement on a resolution. In some cases, if it's too egregious or if we can't reach a resolution, then the member has the opportunity for a hearing, and we will proceed with formal action before the hearing committee. That case is presented to the hearing committee, and they determine, one, whether a violation occurred, and two, if so, what's the appropriate outcome.
And I know we hear a lot on social media that people feel like the process takes a really long time. Can you explain why that is, why it is important that the process takes time?
Well, what's important to know is that USEF is very thorough and comprehensive in reviewing these matters, and sometimes that does take time and it can't be done overnight. We all have frustrations that some of these don't go as quickly as we like, and internally we have those same frustrations. Once we get to a point where we're going to pursue formal disciplinary action, then we're required to hold the hearing within 90 days after that. But the delays are not always on USEF. Sometimes there's other lawyers that are involved, and the delays come from that side as well. But also, horse people are busy, and they're horse showing a lot. Officials are busy, and they're officiating a lot. So that sometimes limits the days of the week when you can have a real productive day of doing interviews as well.
John, with your background, you're new to the horse industry. So what has that presented any challenges not being familiar with equestrian sport?
Not really. My wife grew up around horses. I've learned a lot since I've been here, but my background in investigations and law enforcement has allowed me to use that to uncover the facts, make sure I'm very detailed about, all the different circumstances surrounding any kind of allegation or any complaint.
It's similar to the law enforcement process.
Correct. The steps are the same. Like I said earlier, the steps investigating a burglar to a murder to unethical treatment of a horse, it's the same thing. Document as much information as you can, be as detailed as possible, try to gather any evidence or any additional witness that you can, and then forward it for determination. And I don't make those determinations, I forward it and they review that.
And Sonia, that means that, we are willing to bring in experts too, right? To look at these cases and look at these instances to support the process.
Absolutely. Some of these don't really require an expert, but others do. And so we will engage a subject matter expert when needed to review and determine whether or not it constitutes a violation.
So, Sonia, if there is a report that comes in and there's an egregious action that's taken place, is there an avenue where somebody could be temporarily suspended?
Yes, there is a mechanism where a member can be temporarily suspended where there is a risk of harm that's present.
With that use of the temporary suspension, what is that for? What is that intended to do?
That's intended to maintain the status quo and ensure that there's a safe environment. It's intended to be more preventive than it is to be punitive.
Why is this process so important?
Carly, as the guardian of the horse's welfare is our top priority. Yeah. These horses can't speak for themselves.
Yeah.
And so we've got to advocate for them and ensure that we're protecting them to the highest standard that we can.
And I think that members probably feel very similarly in that we're all passionate about horses. We all love horses, and that is a key part of being able to ensure that we're protecting a safe space for them too on competition grounds.
Absolutely.